Barn Hall was started, and if I clicked on that in some other format, it would show you these little kids in uniforms doing morning and evening prayer every day, and it's a real deal boarding school where you send your kids away. Oh no, and that would be not for everyone. But here's another: St. Dunstan's Academy, associated with All Saints Church in Charlottesville, Virginia, is being dreamed up right now, which is a boarding school for boys only, and they've got a vision for 130 acres, a school, a great hall, a church, chaplains, teachers, the whole 9 yards, a quad, and within a couple of days of pitching it online, they had 20,000 views on their website for an all-boys boarding school. And within 4 or 5 months of pitching it, they've raised over $600,000. So is this something that could maybe possibly happen? Yes, it could happen, and maybe this is the way forward. That's a boarding school, though, and our clergy are involved in that. If I was going to put a little thing under St. Dunstan's, the question is, what should we do at St. George? And I'll let you think about that for a while, because my moral imagination has begun, the gears are turning up here as far as what we could do at St. George to be a part of a movement like this. But nevertheless, he says, and I say, how should we then live, which is the name of a book written by Francis Schaeffer, which is really about all of this. And that may be what we need to do here in the future, is study that particular book as a start. But he goes on to, these are some of the sections: pull your kids out of public schools. Don't kid yourself about Christian schools. Start classical Christian schools. And if there's no classical Christian school, then homeschool. And if you can't afford any of these, well, that's a good question, if you can't afford any of these. We were homeschoolers until we couldn't afford it anymore, and that sounds like a weird thing. But the homeschool group we were a part of, the older you get, the higher the tuition gets, until it becomes thousands each semester for your kid to homeschool. It was impossible, basically. Send your kid to a boarding school. Oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. $70,000 a year, or put your kid in a private school. $15,000 per kid per year. It can't be done by most. So you start a classical Christian school, and yeah, you might be done by the time your kids graduate from college. You might have a classical Christian school. Now that you can do it faster than that. And homeschooling is a solution, but as any homeschooler will tell you, it's not for everyone. Not everyone can do homeschooling. You have to have, as Liam Neeson said, a certain set of skills. You have to have a certain set of skills in order to homeschool. Not everyone has that. What are we? Yeah, please.
Something in that chapter about sending them to public school and then coming home in the afternoon and having a homeschooling kind of.
We're getting there. He's so good at this. That's my final slide. Is so how should we then live? This is a famous book by Francis A. Schaeffer, which is really about the decline of Western civilization, which teaches Western civilization as you go. In college, at Skull Falls College, we had a winter course that was required of every student, which is to watch the whole video series and to read the book and have discussion sessions on Francis Schaeffer's How Should We Then Live. And some say that they can't remember anything from college, but they remember that class on Western civilization because it was so amazing, so enlightening. And so we're thinking maybe we should go back to college here at St. George's and do a Francis Schaeffer class on Western civilization. I don't know if that's what folks want to do or not. Nevertheless, I found a little thing here, St. George's School. Yeah, it's in Bogota, but nevertheless, some moral imagination might be kicking in here. I wonder what could be done at St. George's. How long would that take? What would that look like? I'm not pitching anything. I'm asking your moral imaginations to start cranking and help me out. We already have Bible studies here. We truly do. Perhaps beginning the Western civilization class for young folks and for everyone at St. George's. Maybe that's how. Perhaps introduce the notion of starting a school here at St. George's. Or my book idea, How to Go to Public School. And that's basically what you're talking about. okay, if none of these things are reasonable options, why don't we just go to public school and have our brains awake? Don't just send your kid there, but discover what's being taught there. I know my kids, I believe, are receiving a fine education actually in the schools that they're at, but I need to check with them every time they come home to make sure something funny wasn't taught, or I know they're not going to learn anything accurate about Anglican church history or anything like that. And so I need to supplement that kind of thing, and I should get my act together more. But I mean, in some places in this country, it's probably not that easy to do such a thing, because you'd find that the school is really opposed to you, and we've got a war going on between the home and the school. But I'd say the war is not so bad, actually, because you've heard of the via negativa, right? The negative way to learn what it is that you believe by learning from the inside out what others believe is not so bad, actually. You learn both your own worldview and you learn another worldview at the same time. And then if you have my experience of graduating from college and realizing there's no professor and no test left, you're actually prepared to enter the world without being surprised by a number of boogeymen that you've been scared about until you're afraid to encounter the real world, or not the real world, but afraid to encounter the world around you. It's possible, I think, to go to public school and to still learn about Western civilization, to learn an interpretation of the information that's taken in there, even if it's simply to prepare you to do a job. The moral imagination can be developed at home with the information that you're receiving there, and in fact, you could come out stronger in the end. I don't know, what you think? We got a few minutes. Any ideas? And Joe, and then Michael, if that's all right.
Father Paul, I think it's really almost tragic or ironic that you're showing all of these these private schools that have come into existence or are coming into existence, when there are those of us in this room who are old enough to remember when the characteristics of those schools existed when we were in schools.
Mm-hmm.
We had devotionals, we had dress codes, there were expectations of behavior, and if you ventured outside those areas of behavior, it was addressed by your parents.
Yes.
And it was all, that model has sort of been packaged and brought forward now because the schools have failed.
But I will say this. I was raised in the public school in a socialist country. Canada, right? And you'd think that the person that would churn out would never become a clergyman, but here I am, your clergyman. You can say what you want about me, but nevertheless, your priest was formed in a public school in a socialist country, and I remember confronting my teachers about what they were trying to teach me. And I remember one social studies teacher in the 10th grade said, because I defended the church's position on something, and he said, "Don't let anyone change your mind, this is excellent." And he was the one who was teaching the opposite, and I confronted him, and I'm saying that kind of battleground is not so bad. You're saying that it's sad to think that these kind of things would be addressed at the school, or they'd call your parents or something, and
I have vivid memories of about, 59 years ago, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The whole country was on edge.
Yep.
And I'm sitting in my second grade class, and my teacher was doing the daily devotional.
Daily devotional.
Daily devotional.
Well,
And she
yeah.
was crying because she was so afraid for our
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I don't know if it's a thing, but I'm going to call it silver bulletism, okay? The idea that anything is the silver bullet idea is a false notion, okay? And I dreamed this up myself yesterday. The Emperor Nero received a classical education, okay? And Napoleon Bonaparte was homeschooled, okay? Is it a lock, stock, barrel, and bayonet answer? Well, as long as they're homeschooled, they'll turn out right. As long as they are educated in the classical, good, true, and beautiful, the ancient mindset, the trivium, as long as they're educated in this way, we don't have to do anything. It's the silver bullet. I don't think so. Well, if they go to public school, they'll come out, mindless cogs in a machine, and they'll all be socialists. I don't think so. If parents pay attention, if the church pays attention, I don't think any of that's necessarily true. But I will say there are some solutions that are pretty fascinating. So this is actually the architect's drawing of the quad at St. Dunstan's, which they're raising money for up in Virginia right now. And there's a whole bunch of other drawings, but I think, could you imagine sending your son off to a school where they have chapel in a chapel, like a real chapel, and they have a dining hall, sort of like Hogwarts, I guess you could say. But I mean, it's a real deal boarding school, a reinstitution of something that has been long forgotten in this country. And I will say also the school in Oviedo is somehow funded by contributions and other means, so that a child, if a family can prove that they can't afford it, but they want to go to the school, send their kids to school at our cathedral in Oviedo, tuition can be as low as $500 a year, subsidized, which is possible for just about anybody to do. Not all schools such as this are $15,000, $20,000 a year. There are solutions. What could we do at St. George's? You've got All Saints Mills River, 45 minutes, an hour from here, a church very similar to ours that hosts a homeschool group at the parish, and I think that's something. Can we do something like that? Do you think homeschool is going to start exploding in the next few years? I think so. Are groups like that going to be looking for a place to meet? Yes. Could we be involved in something like that? I don't know. I'm willing to talk about it. Yes, Magda.
But I think there's a danger in separating yourself like that, because some of us could have the means to pull our kids out, but others
Right.
are trapped.
And it's very interesting. The people that pull their kids out typically fill a particular demographic. It's middle, upper class families, and when you just put all those kids together, it's like there's a missing demographic now. So a kid is being formed by people who are exactly like him or her. And that's not always the best. That's what I'm saying. There's no silver bullet, but there ought to be some stroking of the beard and scratching of the head about this. And Bob had a comment.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that perhaps as our society starts getting more and more secular, that Christian families that really want to stick with the truth are going to be pushed out, or pushed, just trying to make us conform to, make families, the children conform to this.
Yeah, I mean,
This idea, that's, the world's pressuring us anyway, but,
it's possible, but there's only so far you can go with that, I would say. There's only so far that a public school system can go. And I honestly believe, when I ask my kids about their teachers, the teachers are not actually, fork-tongued, horned, evil people. Actually, some of them are really great, really good teachers, and they know exactly what's going on. My kids came home, they're reading Animal Farm, the young ones, in class, and I feel like, wow. Not that that's a Christian book or something, but that's an opposing perspective to something that some of us are afraid of to be going on in public schools anyhow. And Michael, and then we've really got to stop because we're right out of time. Yes, sir? Or did you have something? Oh, okay. All right. Anyone else? Yeah, Belvedere.
I was just going to say, I think, it becomes just so important, again, the church, the role of the church, because our children have been in private, faith-based schools and public, so we've seen both.
Yeah.
And have been disappointed by faith-based schools they've been in, and I think for us it just goes to, it's just been a reminder of how much we have to do from home, even when we think they're getting to school. And this is a haven for us. I mean, because I feel like it reinforces on Sunday what we're trying to do every other day of the week.
And what we need to do at St. George's is strengthen it. We need to do whatever we're doing now, we need to do more and more better, I think. So thank you for your encouragement about that. And my moral imagination is ready. Anybody? Not right now, but let's start thinking about this. This is good stuff. Michael.
Are these congregations that are doing these things?
Yeah.
On your slide, how big are those congregations?
About our size. Not much larger, although they have different circumstances, like the mortgage is paid off, they have an adequate facility for such a thing. But other schools, they started a school and they've got 6 kids. But each kid, the tuition annually is $7,000. That pays for curriculum, a teacher, and other stuff that's needed, uniforms and all of that. Is it possible to start a school with 6 kids? Yeah. Will it?
The Lutheran Church kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
First grade, second, now I think
Yeah.
we're up to 7.
You start with a preschool,
Yeah.
and they grow. Anyway, I got to stop now. Thank you. Just a second.